and we have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Hum.
I appear to be Ann Northrup. That's what it says under my face there on the screen.
And I can confirm that for you.
Okay.
And we're going to start this week's show off with some good news. Massachusetts is set to elect the first out lesbian governor in U.S. history.
With any luck, simultaneously with Oregon, so that we have both coasts covered, but we'll get to that. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is promising a vote on the Respect for Marriage Act to repeal the Defense of Marriage Act.
Anti-LGBTQ Republicans in high places from Texas to Long Island are really outdoing themselves this week.
Well, that covers a lot of territory. Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor has allowed Yeshiva University to discriminate against its LGBTQ student group for the moment.
A Florida school board has voted down LGBTQ History Month.
Who knew it was up for a vote? In Provo, Utah, activists shielded a Pride event from anti-LGBTQ protesters.
I'm going to tell you about Santa Cruz lesbian activist Gloria Nietro, who has died.
And after an attack canceled Oslo Pride in June, it went on this week, joined by Norway's prime minister.
And we'll give you all the LGBTQ angles on the Primetime Emmy Awards.
Yeah, stay tuned for that.
But we start in Massachusetts.
Sure.
The state attorney general, right? Maura Healey won the Democratic nomination for governor. There she is, and she's on track to be the first out lesbian governor in the country. She faces a MAGA Republican, Jeff Deal, in November. Healey, the state currently has a moderate Republican governor. Healey is a former college and pro basketball player. Trump lost Massachusetts by 34 points. And then you mentioned Tina Kotek. Well, she's also an out lesbian. She's the Democratic nominee for governor of Oregon to succeed the out bisexual governor. And this is Bisexual Pride Month, Kate Brown. That's seen as a more competitive race.
Maura Healey's been a very, very popular and successful attorney general of Massachusetts for the last few years, and has been a leader on lawsuits that have brought together attorneys general from around the country to challenge anti-LGBTQ laws in various places and with the federal government. So she has been a major player, is very, very popular and successful, and is expected to win this Massachusetts governor's race, although they have a long history recently of moderate Republican governors in what is otherwise a very Democratic state.
But they don't, and that's Charlie Baker, who's in there now, and yep. Maura had kind words for him, but this Deal guy is who she's running against is off the charts, as is on Long Island. Now we've been telling you about this congressional race. This is on Long Island, my native land, although wouldn't be my district. Tom Suozzi's district. He ran for governor. George Santos, an out gay Trump Republican, he's there on the right, is running for the Congress against out gay also Bob Zimmerman. Now this week, it came to light that Santos described abortion as barbaric and has said he would vote to ban it entirely in the United States, including giving criminal charges to doctors. Now he's trying to say, well, I'm pro-life, but I won't advocate for an absolute ban. But he's on the record for it. He also describes himself as pals with Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia, part of the Crazy Town caucus of Republicans in the Congress, and he also compared abortion to slavery. So the question is whether Zimmerman, and so Santos, young gay guy, is running these ads against Zimmerman saying, old news, picture of Zimmerman, who was older, with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. Oh, excuse me, Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden. So that's the way he's running this. By the way, that's how Al D'Amato kind of beat Javits back in the day.
Oh, well, Javits was in terrible shape.
By running pictures of Jake Javits, our Republican liberal senator, where Jake looked like this.
And in a wheelchair, I think.
Huh?
It was just a vicious campaign.
And he won.
This is Nassau County.
Yep, Nassau County. Yeah, northern Nassau.
Yeah, I certainly think there is a healthy population of suburban women there who are likely to not be attracted to Santos. But clearly the Republican Party has held a Zoom meeting somewhere recently to say, back down on the abortion stuff. We are going to lose big if we continue to claim.
Lindsey Graham, who's introducing a federal bill to ban it at 15 weeks.
Yeah, well, he's not running. And all these other people who are on the record as promising to outlaw abortions are backing away from that pledge.
Well, and that's going to help us in Michigan, the issue. The high court there overruled an election board and will allow a referendum on abortion rights to be on the ballot this November. If passed, it will establish a constitutional right to reproductive freedom. Also, a Michigan Court of Claims judge recently struck down a 1931 state law that criminalized most abortions.
And Gretchen Whitmer is up for re-election for governor there, and Dana Nessel, I think, is up for re-election as attorney general.
Yes, Dana's an out lesbian.
Yeah, so bringing out women to vote to maintain legal abortion is going to help both of them in their races, too.
Well, I mentioned Lindsey Graham, but in South Carolina, the Republican-led Senate was unable to pass a near-total ban on all abortions without
exactly
for rape and incest, when some Republicans joined Democrats in a filibuster to stop it. Now, the state already forbids abortion after 6 weeks, but that was blocked by the state high court. So it's now 20 weeks. So an amendment was passed to make it 6 weeks and allows exceptions for rape and incest for 14 weeks. That bill goes back to the House.
Please just stay out of our doctor's offices, our bedrooms, our lives. Just get over yourselves and go away.
They've become totally obsessed with it.
Well, and here's another version. In Texas, that horrible federal judge, Reed O'Connor, who I thought we should finally see a picture of. So I drummed one of those up. No, that's not Reed O'Connor. Come on, Rich. You're just playing with me. Reed O'Connor is the Texas judge federal judge who gets all the cases that the conservatives want to win and nationalize. And he this week ruled that the Affordable Care Act mandate there he is, Reed O'Connor, for free drugs that are crucial to save lives cannot be used to mandate employers to finance PrEP because a company brought a lawsuit saying, if we finance PrEP drugs, that is endorsing homosexuality, sex among unmarried people, and God knows what else. So,
IV drug use.
Yes, thank you. That was.
And we don't want to be complicit in those behaviors.
Look, they will twist anything around to.
They want us dead.
They do. They want everybody who isn't them dead, which is going to complicate their lives. But
all right, on the upside,
the judge says it's okay. You can have your religious freedom to not finance this stuff. Heaven forbid, so to speak. This is all about the Hobby Lobby case a few years ago at the Supreme Court.
And there's no upside to Judge Reed O'Connor. But the President, Biden, has proposed $9.8 billion in the 2023 budget for a national program to distribute PrEP, which would get around all these insurance companies and everything else. We'd just give it to people like we've given them, COVID shots. And I got my booster this week.
Your third booster, right?
It's my fifth shot. Yes.
Yes.
My third booster. It's the Omicron specific booster. I urge you to get it. We're reading that, cases are going back up in New York. Funny Girl has practically had to close. They've got 10 cast members who have COVID,
including Leah Michelle. And I promised you a review. My friends did see it on Leah Michelle's opening night. Loved it. 6 standing ovations. I saw a little pirated video of it. It seemed to me she was rushing through her songs maybe a little nervous on her opening night. I'm sure when she settles in and gets over her COVID, she'll be fine. The voice was definitely there. All right. Well, in other bad performances by legal officers in Texas, they're screwing around again with trans kids. The court said that the Division or Department for Family and Protective Services had to stop doing these peremptory investigations of parents of trans kids who were helping their kids get medical care. But that hasn't stopped the department. They've just gone right ahead and continued to do that anyway. The DFPS investigators have dragged a 13-year-old trans boy out of class in the middle of the day at school, harassed him, cross-examined him with questions, terrified him.
He was shaken and distressed. They asked him about his medical history, gender dysphoria, and suicide attempt. So the real child abusers here are the state of Texas with what they're doing to these kids.
Absolutely. And the Attorney General, Bill Paxton, has just issued what he says he's signed a Bill of Rights. He's not a legislator. He's not the governor. He can't.
Well, he has gotten a lot of legislators to sign on to this bill. And it is bursting with transphobia and homophobia. It states that cisgender men are stronger, bigger, and faster than women. It cites immutable biological differences set not at birth, but before birth. It totally ignores intersex people. It's just pure bigotry. But Anne, we're at the center of this thing, not just nationally and we're in Texas, but internationally. This is the way right-wing politicians want to win races now.
They have found a lane and they are charging down it. But explain to me how an attorney general can, in essence, make a law or a policy like this. He doesn't have any legislative rights, power.
If you read a little bit about his history, he ought to be in jail by now.
Oh, and he's, I think, still under investigation or indictment correct. Or whatever.
All right. In Arizona, a federal judge blocked a new law prohibiting up-close filming of police. It was an ACLU case. The state attorney general says, I'm not going to defend that law.
And even when you think you have a little help at the Supreme Court, the fact is they're so outvoted by the right wing that the best Justice Sotomayor could do with the Yeshiva University LGBTQ group on campus, students trying to get sanction as a group, is delay their request and put in place a stay of the order to allow them to exist.
Now, this is a New York State case under New York State law. I don't understand how Yeshiva gets the right to go directly to the Supreme Court after they have not exhausted their options in New York. But that's what they did. She said, well, okay, we're not going to make you have the gay group now. They say they're, by the way, we will remind you, they say they're a modern Orthodox school. The president of the school says, we will continue to create an environment that welcomes all students, including those of our LGBT community. We just won't let them have a group, so they're signaling the opposite. By the way, back in the day, Georgetown University didn't want to recognize its gay group, and the city of Washington made them do it, and it was all upheld.
Well, you see what's happening with the Hasidic schools in this city, and none of the politicians, even after the New York Times does a big investigation, none of them want to speak up against them.
It is true that Mayor Adams will not speak up against what's happening in these yeshivas. And I'll give you the statistic from this terrific Times investigation. They looked at 1,000 students in a particular Orthodox Hasidic yeshiva. How did they do on the standardized tests? Not a single one of them could pass the math or the reading test. Not a single one. This is abandoning these kids. I think, quite frankly, it is the height of anti-Semitism what they're doing to these kids. They've left them with suicidality, no prospects outside the community. Any of them who try to leave, they can't make it. They have high suicidality rates. And it's just, and again, you're right. Governor Hochul, I don't have anything to do with that. And Mayor Adams, because this is a voting bloc, and they will vote as a bloc. And Lee Zeldin, who is the Republican nominee for governor, is saying, I stand by the yeshivas. But you're not right that no politician is standing up. The city controller, who is Jewish, is standing up and saying, they've got to get an adequate education. And a number of, and the Board of Regents is moving towards establishing guidelines for non-public schools. But these were supposed to already be in place. I went to Catholic school. We had to pass the Regents test or we couldn't get a diploma. That was from the state.
These are religious-run schools whose entire curriculum is religious. They really want the kids to just sit and read the Torah all day and study religious principles. They do virtually no secular education in reading, math, or heaven forbid anything else. And the state and city give them $1 billion.
Correct. That's the outrage. That's the outrage.
$1 billion.
And then give us the money, and we don't want to comply with any of your regulations. Private schools have to provide an adequate education, or they should be closed.
Well, they certainly shouldn't be given $1 billion of taxpayer money.
Correct.
Take the money away. You want to run a school like this? Well, actually, the kids are entitled to a real education. So either way.
Right.
All right.
In Florida, the Miami-Dade School Board voted 8-1 to defeat a proposal to designate October as LGBTQ History Month. But October is LGBTQ History Month, no matter what you say. The proposal would also have provided lessons to 12th graders on the Obergefell decision, on the Bostock decision, which is not just LGBTQ history, it's American history. These are things the United States Supreme Court decided. Marriage and
schools are pretty notorious for not teaching any history past about 1912.
Many spoke up, of course, in favor of the proposal at the meeting, but the Proud Boys showed up outside to yell, and some parents accused the sponsors of trying to indoctrinate their kids. You're trying to indoctrinate our kids. Well, this is an old shibboleth against us, and it continues.
Yeah, and what's different is the velocity of the complaints and the volume. It has gotten to a level of hysteria that is very difficult to combat and very dangerous. And these Proud Boys are showing up in some places with firearms. So
one more court decision: a federal district judge in New York, May D'Agostino, ruled that an adoption agency in Syracuse, New Hope Family Services, can turn away LGBTQ couples and unmarried parents under the First Amendment. Now, she had ruled for the gay folks in this, but the Second Circuit overturned her, so the case was returned to her, and she now says, "Oh, nobody's getting hurt by this. You can go somewhere else, and it's fine."
She also referred to them as self-funded. So there were no further details. You might imagine that means that they don't get any state funding. On the other hand, I'm sure they have to be licensed by the state to do adoption services. So that's a little unfortunate. And it also says that they provide referrals for anyone who doesn't fall. They don't want to give kids to unmarried couples either, only heterosexual married couples.
Do they have to be Christian?
That was not in the story.
Okay.
Also in Oklahoma, Lambda Legal and the ACLU have filed suit against school district there for enforcing an anti-trans bathroom law. That kind of stuff continues. And also in Florida, Lambda and others have filed suit against a law forbidding Medicaid coverage of trans health care. That is an ongoing.
So as a result of that, a large gaming event was canceled over the Don't Say Gay law and all this anti-trans stuff. The group is called Games Done Quick, which has several prominent transgender, what they call speedrunners in their group. It was supposed to be in Orlando in January, but they cited all the DeSantis reactionary policies on COVID and against LGBTQ people. So the event's going to be held online. Past events held in DC for 10 years have raised $35 million for charities, including Doctors Without Borders and the Malala Fund for Girls' Education. This is a big deal group.
Yeah.
And they're not going to Orlando.
Well, and that's what we need are boycotts to try to enforce people understanding that this is not good for them.
And yet, I will say, again, the state is terrible. Orlando is a very welcoming city for LGBTQ people.
All right. Let's go to the judge in Brooklyn.
Well, okay.
Wasn't that?
I think we're bearing the headline about Schumer and the.
Oh, sorry. Yes. Okay. Let's go to that. So New York Senator Chuck Schumer, majority leader of the United States Senate, has now said he will introduce the Respect for Marriage bill that has already passed the U.S. House some months ago.
With 47 Republican votes.
Very easily. But of course, the Republicans in the Senate have their own ideas, and they want to block it because it would need 60 votes in the Senate. It's not something they can pass with 50 plus Kamala. And so the negotiation has been going on for months. You have Susan Collins, you probably have Lisa Murkowski, you have Tom Tillis in North Carolina, and Rob Portman in Ohio, who's retired.
Susan Collins and Tammy Baldwin wrote an op-ed piece in the Washington Post. And Collins wanted certain religious protections, and they apparently have been incorporated into the bill. I don't know the exact language, but that is being worked on.
Well, it just so happens I went to an event yesterday with Tammy Baldwin and Mandela Barnes, the lieutenant governor of Wisconsin, who's running for the Senate for Ron Johnson's seat. Ron Johnson is running too. It's Mandela versus Ron Johnson. It's a very tight race at the moment. The polling shows Barnes ahead by a point or two, but hard to, Republicans are always undercounted in polling. But I sat Tammy down for a little chat one-on-one about the Respect for Marriage Act, and she claims to have some optimism. She says, yes, we only have 4 announced Republicans, but I think we have another 4 who are committed but not willing to say so publicly. And I think then we'll add a few more, and we may get as many as 14. I said, really? So we'll see where this goes. But at the very least, you get people on the record, Republicans, and then you go campaign against them because they are, so vicious that they can't even vote to keep marriage legal.
So this would protect same-sex marriage and interracial marriage, but it would require, if the Supreme Court overturns Obergefell and says, okay, states, you can ban it again, this would say, states do have to recognize same-sex marriages legally performed in other states. So what's that going to lead? That could lead to a kind of a messy situation where you have to leave the state to get married, or you come back, or you move, etc.
Well, to some extent, that's always been true because marriage has always been a state event with some values imposed by federal constitution or laws. The way we won Obergefell and DOMA was because the federal constitution promises equal rights and due process, but
and full faith and credit.
But the actual rules of marriages are left to each individual state, so they can have different ages or different rules of various sorts for marriage. But it is all about religious exemptions. And Tammy claims that they are not going to impose some new strange religious exemptions. And I said to her, so really what you can do is just allow Republicans to go out and say, your church will not be forced to conduct a same-sex marriage.
Never were.
Yes, but people don't know that. So if you go out and say that to them, have you then won the fight? We'll see. But yes, we should examine this very, very carefully because the devil is in the details. I also asked her about the Equality Act, which she has not given up on, but says is probably more likely in the lame duck after the November elections or beyond. But that, of course, is a complicated piece of work, too.
Before we leave Washington, the White House is going to be hosting a meeting for bisexual awareness. Bisexual Awareness Day is the 19th, and they're going to have this meeting in the White House with 15 people on the 20th. It's being put together by a group called Bi Plus Organizing US.
Good. All right. Now, can we go to the hideous judge in Brooklyn?
Sure.
Okay. And that would be Harriet Thompson. Now, she's a surrogate judge, which means she oversees wills and estates and probate and stuff. And she was recently deposed as a judge. And the reason she was deposed has just come to light in statements she made that have now been documented that were just virulently homophobic, racist, ageist, sexist, whatever. Gay men are out to destroy society and rule the world.
Not too nice about Latinos either.
Or black people, and she's black. She went on and on and on. She says she's being smeared and blah, but she has been suspended, but she's suing to get her job back. Well, she's also being paid while she's suspended. A lot of it is religious. She does a lot of referring to the Bible as the basis for her ideas. But she's a mess.
He is a mess.
All right.
In
Brookline, Mass., a United Parish church was flying a trans flag, but someone came in overnight and burned it. And that is the remains of the flag. They've hoisted a new one.
In Boise, Idaho, Pride was canceled. They canceled a half-hour drag event for kids after the producers received death threats. It would have let the kids put on sparkly dresses and dress up and sing funny songs. The Republican Party chair in the state said this was sexualizing children, and the sponsors also of the whole Pride thing started to pull out over this attack.
Well, they've got their vocabulary down. They have decided on their 6 most dangerous words, and they just keep repeating them over and over and waving a few firearms, and everybody runs for the hills. But not in Provo, Utah, where they were having an off-campus BYU Pride event, because BYU doesn't like LGBTQ people, so they hold this off campus, but by BYU students. So they had, just a lovely little local festival going on. 100 protesters showed up with guns and signs complaining about groomers and pedophiles. Well, in this case, LGBTQ people showed up dressed as angels with sheets and were shielding the Pride people, the festival goers from.
Well, this all started during the Matthew Shepard trial, if I remember correctly.
Yes, that's where we first saw the angels.
Right.
So that's a nice version.
And Mackinac, Michigan.
Mackinac.
I saw it both ways. In so many, I tried to get it right. Okay, it's Mackinac, you're sure? Okay.
It's spelled Mackinac. It is pronounced Mackinac.
All right. And I've seen it spelled both ways, but okay. Anyway, on this island, they're going to host their first Pride Festival, September 22nd through the 25th, with a variety of activities, including a prom dance, a cruise, drag queen, bingo, and a hayride. It's organized by a nonprofit with the unfortunate name of Straits Pride. That's Straids, Pride. Okay, formed in 2019.
Mackinac Straits.
Go to straitspride.org for more info.
And in Worcester, Mass, they have had their first Pride Festival in 3 years. First postponed by COVID, but then the traditional organizing group fell apart, and a new, more racially diverse and progressive and youthful group has taken over and conducted a great Pride Festival for the last week or so.
All right, in New York, we've told you about Julius's Bar, the oldest continuous gay bar in New York, and it's been a bar since the mid-19th century. Well, it's up for landmarking at the New York City Landmarks Preservation Commission. They have calendared it, which is a first step. Could take about a year. It will just cover the exterior. The interior is much more interesting. This is where, of course, the sip-in took place, which won us the right to drink in bars in 1966. Service used to be refused to homosexuals.
And we're sorry to report the murder of another trans woman, this time in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Regina Maya Allen, 35 years old. She was in a car with some guy, and she got out and walked away, and he shot her in the back and killed her.
And we skipped over in Long Beach, California, outside the Mine Shaft gay bar last Friday night. Two men, they're outside the bar, and this guy comes up on a bicycle. They get into some kind of an argument. Well, this young man, 28 years old, Christopher Finley, was stabbed to death, and his boyfriend was stabbed as well, but he's out of the hospital. They both were sort of regulars at the bar. The police are not investigating it as a hate crime, but I don't know. We don't know exactly what happened.
We don't. They also ejected some guy with a taser from the bar earlier in the evening. And we mourn the death of a longtime activist, Gloria Nieto, in Santa Cruz, California. What I loved about Gloria was that she was just fearless. There she is on the right with her partner on the left. She, if you were in a group chat online and there was something she didn't like, she didn't hesitate. She spoke up. She told you exactly what she thought. And she was right, and she just went after it.
Her spouse was Joe Kenny. What a resume! Former director of the Familia Center, Lion Martin Health Clinic, and the People of Color AIDS Foundation in Santa Fe. Outreach director at the Santa Cruz AIDS Project, LGBTQ lobbyist in New Mexico. 8 years on the Democratic National Committee. She spoke at the Democratic National Convention in 2000. She also hosted a Hawaiian music show since 2019 called Honu Heart, and she was much beloved in the community.
We also want to mention the death of Marsha Hunt, a longtime actress and Hollywood star, and a human rights activist, much more out as an activist than most people in Hollywood.
Well, she was 104 years old. And she made a lot of movies in the 30s and 40s, the human comedy, Pride and Prejudice. I first really noticed her in a movie that was on Turner Classic Movies, called an anti-fascist movie called None Shall Escape, where she plays a Polish young woman. And they are doing a trial of a Nazi. Now, this movie was shot during the war, but it's a post-war trial of the Nazis, and she's in it. And all right, so she has liberal instincts. And she gets black. She joins the Committee for the First Amendment, and that got her on the blacklist. And she couldn't work in many ways for a long time. And she said, I discovered there's a whole world outside Hollywood. And she got involved in the world. She got involved in human rights all around the world. She also got involved in same-sex marriage, fighting for climate change. She composed a song when she was 95 called Here's to All Who Love, supporting same-sex marriage. Marsha Hunt, she's an inspiration. Look her up online. A lot of videos on her. Check out her movies.
Yeah. And very much alive, but also very much honored. Sue Bird just retired for playing basketball for the Seattle Storm for 20 years. She was one of the best ever at 41 years old. She won 4 WNBA championships, 5 Olympic gold medals. She was regarded as the best ever point guard and had also
led the league in career assists. She's active in social justice causes, and including trying to get Brittany Griner free from Russia. And of course, she is partners with
Megan Rapinoe,
who, but they haven't gotten married yet, but they are going to.
They're referred to as fiancés. All right.
I want to. We've mentioned this whole controversy over the chief judge in New York. Anthony Conataro is in an interim position, an out gay guy. Alan Raskoff from the Jamal's Liberal Democratic Club, gay activist, said he's openly gay, but he does not represent our values, and they're demanding that we get a chief judge who has progressive values.
It's really good that Alan spoke up and is holding them to account, because otherwise they would say, well, he's gay, so he must be someone that the gay community would support. No, thank you. And one other story of anti-trans violence in Houston, Texas. A trans woman was entertaining a guy who made a date with her on Grindr. He shows up, he pistol whips her, screams slurs at her, tries to rob her. Luckily, she survived this and managed to turn him into the cops. He then went on to attack some couple in a car and hold a gun on them. They followed him and called the cops, and he is now under arrest. But this was a guy very disturbed who started out by attacking this trans woman for his own.
Update on Ricky Martin. He has filed a $20 million lawsuit against his nephew, who accused him of abuse, his 21-year-old nephew, and that was thrown out of court. So Ricky is suing, and now the nephew is countersuing.
And are we ready for international news? Okay. Norway, Oslo Pride was canceled or postponed after a terrible massacre in Oslo, a shooting of many people. But they held a delayed event, not sort of a commemoration, not so much official pride, but the prime minister showed up, and so did lots and lots of people.
That's him right there in the middle behind the rainbow flag. Yes, so that's encouraging. The European Court of Human Rights said that French authorities had violated the privacy of a would-be blood donor by labeling him homosexual. He went to give blood. He wouldn't answer the question about the sex stuff, so they just put him down as homosexual. It followed him around. He couldn't give blood, and he has won his case there. He won $3,000 in damages and $9,000 in legal costs. Now, the opening of donations to gay men, which has happened subsequently, has not increased the risk of HIV transmission in blood donations.
No, because they test all blood anyway. And people are generally pretty good about not donating blood if their donation is going to be dangerous.
In Ireland, a school teacher named Enoch Burke was disciplined for not respecting genders of a transitioning student. We have cases like this here, but we don't win them. This is at Wilson's Hospital School in County Westmeath. He was put on administrative leave, but he kept showing up at the school and sitting in an empty classroom. It's crazy. And so they said, look, you're being disciplined, and it's probably for a lot of other reasons than misgendering. And they got a court order, and they got him put in Mountjoy prison. He says it's religion that won't let him call a boy a girl. His Bible, however, says, it's in the Bible, in Christ, there is neither male nor female.
And there's something about hospitality, too, and do unto others, etc. Right. In Serbia, they have been fighting over whether or not to have a pride parade, and the government wanted it postponed because of potential dangers. Then LGBTQ activists held an impromptu event in the streets. And then the antis went out in the street by the thousands to protest the potential Pride parade. And then they were back out in the streets last weekend, thousands of them, with Russian flags and pictures of Putin. And
a lot of this is a put-up job by the Serbian Orthodox Church. So the police, seeing all this conflict, say, so the president of the country says, well, I can't ban it, but the police might, and they did.
They did. The cops have banned the Pride March, but I suspect there will be LGBTQ people in the streets this Saturday.
Well, the European Parliament is asking for a compromise. Now, there are all kinds of LGBTQ events for Europride going on, including one that the prime minister, who's an out lesbian, went to, and activists booed her.
Because she's very conservative and in league to some extent with the right-wing leadership there. But just for a little moment of joy, Queen Maxima of the Netherlands showed up in San Francisco to visited the Castro and a gay bar. And as you see there, is having a nice chat with a few people in drag. She was with the mayor, London Breed, too. So some places things are a little more friendly.
Now, I never remember the late Queen Elizabeth. You might have heard something about her this week. Never remember her going to a gay bar, frankly, ever saying anything about gay people in her life. I mean, whatever else you thought of her. But Prince Charles, who's now the king, when the Admiral Duncan bar was hit with a nail bomb, 3 people were killed, 83 people wounded. This is right in the heart of Soho in London. He was the one from the royal family who paid a visit to the site and said it's an attack on all of us. It had followed attacks on Black people in London and on Bangladeshi people in London, so it was kind of all linked. And he was there back in 1999.
Now, the Queen did do a few things that may or may not have been of her own volition, but she did sign on to the pardon of Alan Turing in 2013. And in that year also signed the Commonwealth Equal Rights Charter, which was believed to be universally applicable. She also approved legal same-sex marriage that year, 2013, big year
Yes.
for the Queen and LGBTQ.
But that's all giving royal assent. And if she doesn't do that, she's out.
I take your point. But I'm not defending her. Look, my new thing is that Charles could go down in history and surpass every former monarch in renown if he abolished the monarchy.
According to the New York Times, he's got enough money.
Yes, $1 billion. That seems to be the number of the day. The Queen did congratulate the London Gay and Lesbian Switchboard on their 40th anniversary, and did promise, which the conservative government has not followed through on, promise to outlaw conversion therapy.
By the way, we skipped over the fact that when Chilean voters voted down their new constitution, it included a lot of progressive stuff, including for LGBTQ people. That wasn't the reason it lost. People don't think it was more recognition for indigenous groups that became controversial, but they're going to give it another try someday.
And in Poland, the court case is beginning. The deputy prime minister and party leader Jarosław Kaczynski is suing a journalist for defamation because the journalist charged him with being gay. He's a 73-year-old bachelor, and the journalist said he was writing this because the guy could be subject to blackmail and that the people should know this.
Long rumored to be gay.
Yeah, the court heard the journalist, decided not to hear any other witnesses, and adjourned indefinitely.
Well, I mean, it's whatever. I mean, he's totally anti-gay in policy.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's just another little footnote.
Yeah.
Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and other Middle Eastern countries are threatening Netflix for having too much LGBTQ content in their programming. They want them to get rid of it, or they're going to be kicked out of those countries.
Saudi state news said that Netflix is an official sponsor of homosexuality and promotes child homosexuality. It sounds just like the Republican Party. In Sri Lanka, the president, Ranil Wickremesinghe, is in power since July, and he said his government will not oppose a bill to decriminalize homosexuality. But he said the vote will be a conscience vote, so we're not optimistic. Activists there questioned their commitment to LGBTQ rights. In the past, the government did things like forced examinations of gays and lesbians, anuses and vaginas, to see if they were engaging in homosexual activity. It's ridiculous, but that's the kind of stuff that was done prior to this. So I guess we're making some progress in Sri Lanka.
Step by step. Now, we're not making progress here. Well, we're making some progress, but we now have the first officially recorded monkeypox death in the United States. In Los Angeles, someone who was severely immunocompromised. We'd heard about the previous death in Texas of someone immunocompromised, but that has not been officially attributed to monkeypox. This one has been. So the recommendation, of course, is that, for instance, people should be treated who have HIV. You should not be letting the HIV get so rampant that your immune system is more compromised. And anyone who does think they have monkeypox should definitely be treated, not let it just go untreated. Now, the CDC says that T-pox is effective against monkeypox, but the New York Times tells us that, the CDC says it's effective, but it's hard to get. We know that because it's still not approved for monkeypox, and you have to go through all sorts of hoops. But the real scandal is the New York Times story that says that, you can get treatment in the United States, but it's being withheld all over the world. And there are countries, for instance, in South America, where men are showing up with monkeypox. And we're right back to 40 years ago with the HIV epidemic, where stigma is now the big problem, because if you show up with evident lesions, you are regarded as gay and shunned and rejected and perhaps subject to worse.
And Brazil seems to have the highest number of cases, and that, we're hogging all the vaccines. I mean, we did have a vaccine program, which is not going well, but we have most of them.
Yes, and infections are slowing in the United States and maybe Europe, but man, to repeat that cycle is just enormously depressing. Right. So we'll go to entertainment news.
All right, we'll start the Primetime Emmy Awards. The announcer for the show, you may have noticed, was Sam Jay, who has been a writer on Saturday Night Live, done a bunch of stand-up on Netflix, and co-creator and star of Pause with Sam Jay on HBO Max, a series, a talk show that takes place in Sam's apartment.
I watched it. It's interesting. It's different. So Sam is obviously, we're talking about her. She's an out lesbian. She has a wife. She's very prominent, and she did a great job announcing and was much more a part of the show than an announcer usually is.
All right, let's look at some of the LGBTQ wins. Murray Bartlett won for Lotus for Best Supporting Actor.
White Lotus,
yes. Best Supporting Actor in a Movie or Limited Series. Of course, White Lotus is a limited series. He's gay. He plays a gay character, and he thanked his partner, Max.
And his P-Town family, of which he said, "I love you." White Lotus was a big winner all night, one of the top shows to win. Love seeing Jennifer Coolidge win. And most of the several awards went to Mike White, the creator, writer, and director, who is an out gay man and bisexual, in Bisexual Awareness Month, and the son of Mel White, the out gay Soul Force creator and activist. Mel and Mike appeared together on The Amazing Race a few years ago, and Mike talked about how he is now on Survivor.
Well,
He doesn't have enough to do with producing White Lotus. He has to keep going on these competition shows.
I want to reach out here because during his speech, one of his speeches, Mike White said, "My father is really struggling right now, and I dedicate this award to him." So Mel, who has been on this show, Mel was the guy who worked for Jerry Falwell and then became a gay activist and wrote a lot of books and Soul Force, as you say. So our thoughts are with you.
Absolutely.
And then Jared Carmichael won for his coming out special.
Yeah.
There he is receiving the.
Rothaniel.
Sorry?
Rothaniel was the show.
That's right. Where he did all his coming out. He said, despite dressing up like this, he said he was just going to take this and go home.
Yes, he did. But we also there he is on Gerard on Rothaniel, which was quite a stunning special that surprised a lot of people.
And it won.
I also want to mention a couple of other things. John Oliver won yet again for Variety Talk Series, and he's always been very on top of LGBT news and does a lot of pro-LGBT segments on his show. So I'm happy to see him win. But
RuPaul's Drag Race did not, as expected, win for the 8th time as the best competition program.
No, this time
it went to Lizzo. Huh? Lizzo's Watch Out for the Big Girls won. That was an upset.
Yeah. Well, back to John Oliver for a second. On his show this week, he did something that really surprised me. I may be the only human being who has never watched an episode of Law and Order. So he, am I?
You can see it outside your window, Anne.
Well, they film it outside my window.
That's right. They film in the courtyard here sometimes.
Oh, they film in my building all the time, but I've never seen it. So I was unaware of this issue that John Oliver brought up this week on his show, which is the extent to which Law and Order is heinously against criminal defense lawyers and how they're totally on the side of the cops and the prosecutors. And he ran a series of clips where the Law and Order people are saying, yeah, I suppose you're going to hire some criminal defense lawyer. And it was just shocking that any show would be so overt in its contempt for the idea of criminal defense.
Well, I mean, maybe they figure Perry Mason won so many cases that we have to balance that out.
Well, he referred to Perry Mason and said this is the anti-Perry Mason. But we have buried the lead here because the first people to come out on the Emmy broadcast last night were the stars of Hacks, Jean Smart and Hannah Einbinder. And Hannah Einbinder is openly bisexual and has been, for years. So they come out and they do this little shtick where Jean Smart is addressing the audience, but Hannah is sort of hiding behind her. And Jean eventually says, what the hell are you doing? And Hannah whispers to her, I'm shy. You're shy? What do you mean you're shy? And Hannah Einbinder says, well, I'm really just up here so I can get a better view from the stage of Zendaya.
Now, Zendaya and Jean Smart won Emmy Awards.
Yes, exactly. But it was a very cute little lesbian moment to lead off the Emmys.
Billy Eichner's gay rom-com Bros premiered at the Toronto Film Festival. It's coming out at September 30th. Got 4 out of 5 stars from The Guardian UK. And, he's claiming this is the first big studio gay rom-com with a majority LGBTQ cast. But,
I think it's a totally LGBTQ cast, isn't it?
No.
I think that's the conceit of the film, that it is a 100% LGBTQ cast.
Netflix is premiering a documentary on an Australian trans teen on September 19th. It's going to span 19 years, The Dream Life of Georgie Stone. As she comes out, she becomes an activist. It looks good.
And our associate producer, Bill Ballman, got to go to a screening of the new David Bowie biographical film, Moon Age Daydream, which he enjoyed a lot. Do you have his scripted review there?
I can link to it in our email.
There's a good idea. But Bill was quite taken with it and thought it was very inspiring, with David Bowie talking about his philosophy of life in many ways. It's evidently technically unusual and unique, and he recommends it.
And a ton of songs.
Yeah. Oh, 40, I think.
Oakland, California celebrated Amy Schneider Day for the champion Jeopardy contestant, who was proud of being from there, even though, what's her name, said there is no there, Gertrude Stein. Anyway, she had a 40-game winning streak on the show. Tournament of Champions begins October 3rd with Amy. And
31st.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just wrote that too fast. October 31st. Amy and two others, James Amodio and Matea Roach, an out lesbian, they're going to skip the preliminaries. They're going to go right to the semifinals.
They get a bye into the semifinals.
Right.
And Amy's also going to be on a special tribute to Alex Trebek on November 8th. Also, Dancing with the Stars is about to start another season, although it's on Disney Plus, evidently. I don't think it's on ABC, but it includes Shangela, the first drag performer to be on Dancing with the Stars, who will dance with Gleb Savchenko there on the right. So that's a new thing. But Sam Champion is also going to be on this edition of Dancing with the Stars, but dancing with a woman.
Sam Champion, your out gay weathercaster, out for decades on TV.
And Laverne Cox has a new sitcom coming called Clean Slate. It is being produced by Norman Lear, 100 years old, on the Amazon Freevee channel. It's a story of a trans woman who goes home to her Alabama dad. She also has a new talk show on the E! Network, If We're Being Honest. And of course, she has a career as a red carpet reporter for the awards shows. Laverne Cox, on fire.
Now, what's all this upset about lesbian polar bears?
Well, the very popular kids show Peppa Pig has a new character, lesbian parents of Penny the polar bear. That's Penny in the middle as the child, and introducing us to her lesbian parents.